Buenos tardes. Good afternoon from the Colombian side of the Colombian Venezuelan border. A little demonstration taking place behind me as I dodge traffic that is exiting Venezuela and entering Colombia. He is reporting and give you a play-by-play. It sounded like they're screaming stuff like Maduro. It seems to be anti-Venezuelan government. I've got a mic in hand. Can someone let me know? Someone was in. I want to ask if the audio is all right. I'm not sure of that. If you are watching live, can you please let me know in the chat whether you can hear me, whether the audio is working. Thank you very much. I think I'm gonna hold this. I'm gonna hold this mic. I've got competing mics. Jesus, we're live right now. You can shut that one off unless you want to continue recording. Anyway, what's going? I'm joined by Jesus, who's been appearing in many videos with me, including past live streams here. What's going on at this demonstration here on the Colombian side of the border?
This is not a demonstration. This is just less than 10 people. I guess they have been paid by someone, by the lefties, because as you can see here behind on me, there are just like 5 or 6 people yelling stupid things about Maduro, that he is the president, that he is still in command, that blah blah blah. Nobody is supporting him. That this is a popular march. There's no march because there are only 5 or 6 people, no more than that. As you can see there are like 5 or 6 people, maybe.
CNN Brazil in the crowd.
Yeah, they're asking direct questions in Spanish, as I already heard that. I mean, listen, I'm Venezuelan. I know the reality of my country, and all the things this guy is saying is just bullshit. It's just lies. It's just a bunch of lies. That Delcy Rodriguez is in command right now due to circumstances, that Maduro is still the president because he hasn't been dead, he hasn't died, that there is no dictatorship in Venezuela, something that everybody in the world knows. That's the truth. So look at that. Look at that. Listen to how many people yell after him.
I stand corrected. I was assuming that this was a anti-Maduro demonstration, but clearly it's not. Luckily, I have Jesus here with me. Thank you, old gamer. Thank you for the comment, old gamer. Just to set the scene a little bit, we are on the Colombian side of the Colombian Venezuelan border. There's traffic exiting Venezuela, entering Colombia. We've been conducting interviews on the bridge. The bridge right there is the Simon Bolivar International Bridge. And we'll probably go back onto the bridge during this broadcast. In the meanwhile, it looks like Jesus is mixing it up a little bit.
I'm asking him, where are the tolls of the so-called winner Maduro? They cannot prove that Maduro won because there are no tolls. They never show the tolls. Tolls are the results, right? The
vote tally.
Sorry?
Tally. Like counting the votes.
Yeah, the tally. They never show the tally to the people, not to anyone. Something that Maria Corina and Edmundo did. They have been published. Everyone have access to those results. digitally. There is a page for that where you can find those tallies. So the Maduro never showed any tallies because, of course, there's no way for them to show them because they don't have them. All of them were taken by the military forces and given to Maria Corina. Maria Corina took them out to Panama, and they are now rescued in Panama.
All right, well, I'm gonna flip the camera around and let's try to listen in. And Jesus, can you give us a little bit of play-by-play of what's going on?
This guy is just saying bullshit about that Maduro won the elections, that he is the true president of Venezuela. That's not true, of course. That he's still the president. He says that there is no dictatorship in Venezuela. He says that, you know, this guy and those two people there are supporting Maduro, but they have Colombian shirts and Colombian flags. So we don't understand that they are not Venezuelan. They are not Venezuelan.
In case anyone is unaware, now, now Jesus is being interviewed.
First of all, this guy is not Venezuelan. If he were a true Venezuelan, like me, for example, I'm Venezuelan. Yo soy venezolano. Yo nací en Caracas y yo tengo 44 años de edad. Yo viví 39 años en Venezuela y yo sufrí 22 años de la real dictadura. En dictadura se cierran medios de comunicación, no se permiten comentarios contrarios contra el gobierno. Todas esas cosas las sufrimos. RCTV, Venevisión, Televen, todos ellos sufrieron la persecución del señor Maduro y de Chávez. No, yo soy profesor de inglés y dejé de dar clases en el 2014, hace 12 años. ¿Por qué? Porque me obligaban a pasar a los chicos que no hacen mis clases o que me saboteaban las clases y me obligaron desde arriba, era una orden de arriba, tienes que pasarlo, está prohibido reprobar a los niños. Por ahí comenzó la destrucción de nuestra sociedad, premiando a los que no estudiaban, a los que no se esforzaban, y eso es un plan premeditado. ¿Por qué? Porque mientras más bruta es la sociedad, menos herramientas tiene intelectuales para defenderse. For President Trump, oh, come on, he's my hero. Come on, he's our hero. I'm talking on behalf of 90% of society. They cannot say that inside Venezuela, of course, because I can show you a screenshot of an article, of a law article that went out yesterday evening, where they are telling the police forces to capture everyone commenting in favor of Trump or against Maduro. What's that? How is it possible that you cannot say your opinions out quickly because you will be taken to prison?
What do you say to critics like him that say the U.S. should not have taken Nicolas Maduro and that the U.S. is after Venezuela for the oil? What do you say to those people?
There's no other option. There's no other option for Venezuela to be free. This was the only option for us. Why? Because we have been kidnapped by criminal forces. Maduro is not the legit president. He lost the elections, and that is proof. That is proof. You can find the tallies in the Maria Corina's page, and you can go there. They are digitalized, and Maduro never showed the tallies. Jesus Infante. My pleasure.
Mucho gusto.
Who are you with? All right, Jesus.
I got mad, man. I got mad.
NBC News just interviewed Jesus, and now they want his name. So I guess Jesus will be appearing on a broadcast or in some NBC publication or report that's coming out. Good to see you, Galactic Warrior. We'll be heading onto the bridge shortly. We're standing in what's basically press row here on the Colombian side of the border. Since the since the capture of Maduro, and I've been here for the past couple of days. I haven't been here all 4 days, but since Maduro's capture, there have been media stationed out here on the Colombian side of the border with Colombian troops, Colombian soldiers, and tanks positioned here. Yesterday, there was a lot of talk with regard to the tension between the Trump administration and the Colombian government. But most of the attention and focus being placed by media out here is related to the Venezuela situation and Maduro's capture. And for those of you who weren't tuned in at the start, I was incorrect. This is a pro-Maduro, pro-Venezuelan government demonstration that's taking place here. Jesus, your supporters saying that you're brave to speak up. So this demonstration is continuing on. International media have been stationed here on the streets. Now there's a big truck that's heading from Colombia to Venezuela, carrying I'm not sure what, and those seemingly honks of support. I don't know for whom these honks of support are. Now let me find Jesus.
Estamos gritando a los compañeros que es que viene una delegación de Venezuela y están en la mitad del puente. Vamos a ir.
Gotta dodge some traffic entering Colombia. Get back. When Jesus is done with his latest media hit, we'll probably head onto the bridge. For the past day and a half, we've been conducting a lot of interviews on the bridge, speaking mostly with Venezuelans. I'll flip the camera around. Speaking mostly with Venezuelans who've been crossing into Colombia, a lot of whom are crossing back and forth. It's very common for a lot of Venezuelans to go back and forth in this region between Venezuela and Colombia. Some of them live on the Colombian side, some live on the Venezuelan side. And for that matter, we've been speaking with a handful of Colombians who have also been crossing back and forth. So far, we've mostly heard from Venezuelans who are either supportive or semi-supportive of Trump's move to capture Maduro, or who are very, maybe not very, but a little fearful about the situation and speaking up. We'll get into that in more depth later on. We've been investigating some of the concerns that Venezuelans have with regard to threats pertaining to them speaking up, or even Venezuelan authorities going through their phones, checking for messages, anything that could be critical of the government or supportive of Maduro's capture. When Jesus is free, I'll fill you in a little bit more on that. But we've also run into a handful of people who have been critical of the U.S. and seem to be supportive of the Venezuelan government, referring to the interviews that we've conducted on the bridge. Now, this demonstration has mostly broken up, but it appears that more than a handful of people, I'm not sure the nationalities of them, but Jesus, I'm right here. Who did you just speak with?
Some French press,
Here, you go.
some French press,
Flip the camera.
some French journalists. They wanted to know about what just happened, why I got so mad at the guy who was speaking out, defending Maduro. So I told her, listen, I'm Venezuelan. Of course, I'm living in Colombia since 5 years ago, but I'm 44 years old and I had enough time to suffer the dictatorship happening in Venezuela, so I can tell you the truth. And everything this guy is saying is absolutely false. This is not true. And I'm more than sure that this guy and the ones surrounding him are not Venezuelan. They don't even have they don't have a minimum idea of what is actually happening inside my country. So how come they
Why do you think they may be Colombian?
because they have the Colombian soccer team shirt, and they have the Colombian flag around their necks, and they have Colombian hats on their heads. So everything says they are not only because of that, because of their appearance, but also because of their accent. They speak like Colombian people. They don't speak like Venezuelan, and they are very well dressed. So that means they don't come from a popular low class. They look like people that have money. Like high class. You understand this? And I'm more than sure that they are connected somehow to the Colombian government.
Interesting allegation. I don't think we have any proof of them being connected to the Colombian government, but I don't know. Maybe we can look into that. How about speaking of people coming from a low class, speaking of people coming from a low class area, let's head in that
Yeah,
direction.
sure. Let's go. Let's go.
I will flip this around. Right now we're walking by the staging ground for international press who are here. We love doing their photo ops and TV hits in front of the Colombian tanks. We are now heading onto El Puente Internacional. Boulevard Bridge that here forms the border between Venezuela and Colombia. Do you still have the mic? I just realized I'm not talking to the mic. You got the mic.
You
For
just
those of you
noticed
who are
that.
live right now, if you hear anything that I just said, maybe someone.
Where's the other
maybe
mic?
Someone. I I don't want the two mics competing with each other. So if we conduct an now these are the guys who you think are Colombian.
Yes, of course. They're not Venezuelan.
All
They,
right,
they, they don't look like Venezuelan.
not in that
They have the Colombian flag, man. Come
Okay,
on.
really quickly, let's do a little scene setting. Right here is where sometimes Colombian immigration officials conduct checks
Yeah.
of people exiting Venezuela and entering Colombia. Right now, they're only sparsely conducting checks, and there have been some people claiming that there was a huge border rush or various odd things that don't seem to be the case. But anyway, let's get back to that later, and let's now follow this crowd that consists of pro-Maduro, pro-Venezuelan government demonstrators who you, Jesus, suspect are Colombian or not Venezuelan. Let's follow them onto the bridge, but we can't go too far onto the bridge because
Let's just
it'll
jog.
get
Let's just
it'll
jog.
get dangerous for me if I were to head across head onto the Venezuelan side of the bridge. But let's go see what's taking place there. Sorry about the shaky camera. myself trying to fucking. They're pretty quickly toward the Venezuelan side of the bridge. If they cross onto the Venezuelan side of the bridge, then I am not going to be able to follow them. I see.
They're doing this just because they know that on the other side supporting Maduro they will be safer than here, because they know that here in Colombia they will encounter, they will find more opposition than there, so they are cowards. Why don't they stay here in this side? Because they know that they will meet more opposition. So
Okay, well, let's see where they stop. We've got to be careful because I think this is the pole that I cannot cross. Yeah, from here I'm basically gonna have to zoom in on them because the center of the bridge is right about here.
well, no, there are some foreign journalists over there. Why don't we approach just a little bit more, like 50,
I'm not
50
going
meters, 50 meters?
too risky here.
No, yeah, they
I
say
can't
they,
risk
they say that the
anything.
Venezuelan pole is the one after the crowd, and there are some gringos over there. There are some Americans there. They say they're safe there. I don't know. As you can see, the guards are exactly on that pole there. Those are the guards.
Okay, so
I
you're
don't know.
referring to the people in the yellow vests. Those are
Yeah,
the Venezuelan guards.
yeah.
The National Guard. You want to explain who they are?
They're Venezuelan guards, and they will very likely will not let us record anything from that point on. From that point, you know. As I told you, they're now saying openly that they are Colombians supporting Venezuela. That's what they have just said over the speaker. He just said we are Colombian brothers supporting our Venezuelan brothers. So I knew. I told you they're not Venezuelan. Did you zoom?
I can't.
They're now yelling. Yeah, they're now yelling that they are all a single brotherhood. That they're Colombian patriots and supporting Venezuelan patriots. That all of us are Simon Bolivar's children or brothers. That we are the same family, part of the same family. I can't hear very well because of the horns of the motorcycles.
I don't want to walk into that crowd because then I risk a guardsman grabbing me. So they were. We got a drone.
Recording, yeah.
Got a drone here. So I see a Chavez sign. I'll zoom in on the Chavez sign.
Yeah, they're showing a picture of Chavez.
Oh, Maduro.
No, there is on one side. Yeah, exactly. Maduro is on one side and Chavez is on the other side.
I can, I can see the guardsmen on the other side of the.
You think your microphone is okay? You think your
Well,
sound
it's
is
on chat. We've got people in the live chat.
And what did they say that you? We live? My goodness, I
We're
didn't
live. We've
know.
got 20 people watching.
I didn't know. Oh my.
Problem is, they cannot. I presume. Chat. Can you hear Jesus all right? I presume that if you walk far away from me, they can't hear me.
Oh, okay, okay,
I
okay.
could, I could mic myself up too,
Okay.
but I don't
I
want the
mean,
mics
to mix, yeah.
interfering with each other.
All right.
Chat. Can you hear Jesus all right when he's talking?
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me here? Uh, there are some people coming by. There are some people coming towards us right now. Oh, look at this car.
All right, we got a yes. Oh, I recognize.
Colombian. It's Colombian.
MD, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, they're saying they can hear you clearly.
Oh, oh, nice, nice. Hey,
It's kind of funny that half hour into a live stream you realize you're live.
I just realized.
But you're
Sorry,
very much in the
because we've been taping so many videos that I forgot that one of them will be a live stream. So sorry. Well, there's still a bunch of guys supporting Maduro and Chavez, but I'm afraid they are not Venezuelan. Most of them are not Venezuelan. They're just pretending they love Venezuela and all that stuff. I don't know why. I don't know what they're getting out of this, but I'm gonna try to see. I'm gonna try to see if I can hear some of the words from closer. Okay. All right, all right, all right. Joshua. So, well, almost the same. Okay, on the same line. They say we are. We've been fighting together for more than 40 years, and we are the same flag. That the Venezuelan and Colombian flags are the same flag. We are only one flag, and that was all I could hear.
Can you see how the Venezuelan guards are reacting to them? Are they
No,
just
they're just quiet.
ignoring
No,
them?
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're just quiet over there. They're just standing and looking, and that's it. But not they're not interfering. They're not molesting anyone. They're just there standing and looking. That's it. They're not even stopping anyone. They're not checking on anyone.
Somos libres, no podemos convivir con la presión del gobierno norteamericano. Tenemos que unirnos en una sola voz, tenemos que ser fuertes, tenemos que ser colombianos. José, José, cuidado con la moto, tío. Estamos peleando por nuestra soberanía, no podemos arrodillarnos ante el imperio norteamericano. No es un señor, no es un pedófilo.
Well, now they are accusing Trump of being a pedophile. They're saying we cannot surrender and put on our knees um, in front of the, how do you say?
They're referring to Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you say
Imperial
imperial
or imperialism.
imperialism, that we cannot surrender and put on our knees in front of our imperialism. So
See the photographer just popped off that stuff.
they claim Trump is the worst person in the world, but unfortunately, that is the opinion of only a very reduced and a very small portion of Colombian and Venezuelan citizens. I can assure you that for sure. Are they asking any questions over the chat?
Every, anyone who's watching live, feel free to ask any questions that you may have. for Jesus about what's going on at this demonstration right now, or for me, or for both of us about what we've seen here over the past couple days. May I have it for a second? To, to reset the scene, we're basically in no man's land between Venezuela and Colombia on the Simon Bolivar Bridge that divides the two right here. And we have a pro-Maduro, pro-Venezuelan government protest taking place us right behind this bus. And Jesus is going over there and listening in and providing some translation and commentary. Okay, question: why are people flowing into Colombia from Venezuela? Are they thinking it's going to get worse? Let me flip it around. Jesus, we just got a question, and we're in the process of putting out a lot of videos that do address this, but the commenter is asking, why are people flowing from Venezuela into Colombia? Do they think that the situation is going to get worse, and might it get worse in the aftermath of Maduro's capture?
No, no, that's not the reason. This isn't the normal thing every day here because since both borders are so close to each other, they live in Venezuela, but many of them work in this other side of Colombia side and not also work there, but the ones who don't work there, they come to Colombia in order to get some good products, some food. That's it. Some groceries. That's why they come so frequently. They often come to Colombia, but they come and go. They come and go every day, even several times a day. Several times a day. That's the normal thing. Remember that today we interviewed another guy that was going into Venezuela, and after a couple of minutes, he was coming back to Colombia again, and so forth. They're now playing Colombian anthem. Would you like to say something?
So the reason why I do not want to get up super close to film this,
There are Colombian guards coming here.
yeah, my concern is about the Venezuelan guards, not the Colombian guards. But we're now seeing Colombian police. Police, yeah. So now somewhat of a standoff between Colombian police and Venezuelan guards. We have Colombian police standing here in no man's land filming the demonstration that's taking place, and then on the other side, I don't know if you can make out men in yellow vests, but the men in yellow vests are the Venezuelan guards, and those are the ones I'm concerned about, because I do not want to risk being grabbed by a Venezuelan guard. Here, you can have the mic back. What are they chanting now as they're walking by?
Alert, alert, they say alert. Bolivar soars through Latin America, they say. We are the same town, that's what they say. Now, we don't want to be an American colony. We don't want to be an American colony, that's what they say. We are free countries, they say. We are free countries. We are free countries, that's what they say. We are free countries. Well, he's saying basically that Colombian workers are showing their support to the Venezuelan people, and they send this message directly to President Petro. They say they reject Mr. Donald Trump's decisions of invading Venezuela.
los progresistas, la gente de
I
paz,
have it here.
la gente de América Latina.
You know what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Estamos en estado de alerta.
I was about to ask you.
Como lo han señalado los jueces en Estados Unidos, el cacareado cartel de los soles no existe. Es toda una trama.
Now he's saying that the U.S. government said that the cartel de los soles does not exist, which is not true, of course. They didn't say that.
En Colombia y Venezuela estamos reafirmando nuestro aliado. Estamos diciéndole que estamos
Colombia and Venezuela are reinforcing our loyalty. That's what he says.
los pueblos de Bolívar. Que
I know that there's some
para detener al agresor, para detener al imperio norteamericano que hoy
I know there's some rhetoric coming from people critical of the U.S. government's CIA and intelligence agencies regarding the cartel de los and supposed CIA ties to it. So I don't know if that's something that they're going into the weeds about, but there are a lot of people critical of U.S. foreign policy and involvement in the region who like to allege CIA ties to drug trafficking that takes place in the Americas. Anyway, that's a tangent. We're now basically back in Colombian territory, out of no man's land. Still on the bridge, but approaching the end of the bridge.
rechazar las amenazas en contra del presidente legítimo de Colombia, el doctor Gustavo Petro. No vamos a permitir como pueblo unido que se atropelle la dignidad de los venezolanos y los colombianos. Un pueblo amado.
We will, yeah, they saying they will not let their dignity to be crushed by the U.S. government. And they insist on Donald Trump calling him a pedophile. I already counted them. They are less than 20 people. They are like 17.
This is traffic heading from Colombia to Venezuela.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. But they're just regular people. They're just passengers.
defendiendo la autonomía y para evitar. En algunos momentos defienden a Nicolás Maduro, pero sobre todo lo que dicen es que hay que...
Bolívar nos enseñó a ser libres. Chávez nos enseñó a ser libres.
He has a red jacket. What is it?
Yeah. The PESUV. That is the Maduro's political party. The PESUV, that is Maduro's political party. That's a Venezuelan political party. That's it, the only one in command of all the structure of the politics inside of Venezuela.
I can't tell if the protest is, or demonstration is fully over now, or if the leader's just taking a break to give more interviews.
Apparently, yes, apparently.
Maybe you can listen in, give us a little bit of a translation.
Así que el señor Trump y todos sus lacayos del imperio norteamericano no les queda otra sino que entiendan que aquí hay un pueblo unido.
It says Mr. Donald Trump must understand that there is a united, a united nation here, that 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 the narco trafficking is just a lie that has fallen down. That we will continue to fight for this nation. The reporter is saying, the reporter is saying and supporting the guy's words, saying that we Colombians don't want to be a U.S. colony. So
Desde aquí le pedimos a nuestros hermanos colombianos apoyar ese noble y vamos a defenderlo porque hoy fue Maduro, mañana puede ser.
he's asking that we Colombians have to defend Petro because today it was Maduro, but tomorrow can be Petro, the one who can be taken down and taken into the United States.
All right. For context, there's been a bit of a war of words recently between Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, and the Colombian government, and the Trump administration, and Donald Trump himself. And Petro, the Colombian president, was recently giving comments nearly identical to something that Maduro had said previously. Jesus, Maduro was somewhat notorious in recent months for daring Trump and the U.S. military to come get him in Miraflores, the presidential palace in Caracas, correct?
That's correct, of course.
And recently, Gustavo Petro, he hasn't been saying the exact same thing, but he's basically been saying things like "Come get me."
Come get me and put me on the orange suit.
So the war of words that's escalated between the U.S. and Colombian governments has a little more significance now that there were serious actions backing up the words on the U.S. side. The U.S. military literally came to Caracas and got or extracted Maduro.
Yes, of course. Well, if you want my impressions, my personal impressions, I consider not wise Petro's words, because he should pay attention to what happened to Maduro. Maduro, there, the U.S. government and Trump directly telling them, "Come for me, take me out." And what happened after just a couple months? Exactly that. They came in, they took him out. Not only him, but his wife also. And now, Mr. Nicolas Petro, the president of Colombia, is doing exactly the same. Gustavo Petro, sorry. Gustavo Petro is doing exactly the same. Yeah, Nicolas Petro is his son. Is his son.
Granted, the relations between Colombia and the U.S. have not deteriorated to the point of the relations between the U.S. and Venezuelan governments. Colombia is not a country that is a socialist authoritarian regime that's aligned with Russia, Iran, China, etc. So I, I I don't know how much to make of the war of words that's been taking place between Trump and Petro and some of their uh, officials within the various administrations. But yeah, things have changed. Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, was issuing a similar warning to the Cuban governments, and since we've been here, we've been Jesus and I have been discussing a bit the limited casualties that took place during the Maduro raid. You want to speak at all to the Cuban elements of the Maduro raid?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, first of all, we should remember that back in 2017, Maduro um, denied that Cuban forces were inside of Venezuela. That was, let's say, 9 years ago, right? And now, after the events of January the 3rd, where he was extracted, or southern, how do you say? Extracted. Well, now we know, and this has been confirmed by the Cuban government, Mr. Diaz Canel. He said that 32 Cuban guards that were in charge of the protection of Maduro died as a consequence of the confrontation between the U.S. forces and Maduro's forces. So that is the best proof that Maduro does not trust his own troops, his own military forces, because if it were like that, he wouldn't have to hire uh, people from another country. But on the other side, many people say, and I agree with that partially, that these Cuban guards were in charge of preventing Maduro from escaping, from fleeing to another country. Like the order was not to let him go anywhere, right? So well, however it was, now 32 Cuban guards were sent to heaven, and other 15 Venezuelan guards were also sent to heaven. You understand my words?
For those of you who haven't seen it, I released a video earlier today on this same channel that starts out with clips from a live stream that you and me, Jesus, did together at this very spot, including
Back in 2019.
including on Christmas Day 2019, including on the bridge. Maybe we ventured too far onto the bridge that day, but it worked out all right. And as well, this whole area, the edge of the bridge, the edge of La Parada here in Colombia. And I started out today's video with clips of that live stream because in that live stream 6+ years ago, you had actually requested that Donald Trump and the U.S. military invade Venezuela, your native country, and overthrow Maduro, and to do so fast and
Violently.
were your exact words. And you were also remarking in that live stream, and I included part of that, how you were very skeptical that the Venezuelan military would actually defend Maduro in such a scenario. And I haven't yet published an interview we did on this bridge right around over there yesterday, but an elderly gentleman expressed some interesting, similar sentiments in that he was talking about how his daughter is in the Venezuelan military and how he does not support the Venezuelan government. She does not support the Venezuelan government. And he was saying that
Colonels,
in his mind,
lieutenants, and captains.
almost his claim, not mine, that almost no one in the Venezuelan military actually
Support.
supports Maduro and the Venezuelan government. And you were arguing that point, not in those exact words, but essentially arguing that point 6+ years ago when we did this live stream. So it's interesting to see what happens from a military perspective in Venezuela, not just in terms of external forces, but internal forces.
Yeah, man. Basically, the reason why this happens is because the suffering is not only for the citizens, for the, but also these military soldiers. They have family, they have mothers and fathers, and they have children who are also struggling to buy food. That's why it very deep inside they know that what is going on, this dictatorship by Maduro and his thugs, is completely wrong. And they know it since very long ago. So this is not something new. They have been against Maduro for so many years, but they, as a matter of fact, many of them who have publicly expressed their opinions, they have been even taken to prison or sent to heaven, or they have been forced to flee from the country. So, as I told you at the beginning, the reason why most military soldiers don't support Maduro is because they also have families who are suffering the same consequences of the dictatorship inside the country.
Chat, let me flip the camera around. If anyone has any questions for Jesus or myself, please chime away. We are getting close to the 1 hour mark, but we're not in a hurry to wrap this up, and we can walk back over to the.
Yeah, another one.
Can Jesus share about how he first learned that Maduro was extracted?
Yes, of
So
course.
we touched on that a little bit in the video published earlier today, but not in depth. So why don't you go for that? And we've got this background that is the
Yeah,
entrance to
uh,
Colombia.
if I understood well, this person just wants to know how I knew that Maduro had been extracted from Venezuela, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, of course. That was last Saturday. Today is Wednesday, like 4 days ago.
4.5 days ago.
4.5 days ago. I was sleeping. I remember that the day before I went to sleep very, very late, like at 11 or something. And then at 2 in the morning, I had left my phone right beside of me, right next to me. Then I noticed that it was vibrating, and then when I saw it, I saw many messages on the screen and many missed calls. Then I got worried that something wrong might have been happening. I decided to open my chat, and I see so many messages from my family members, not only from here in Colombia, but also from inside of Venezuela, from the capital. I have family members living very, very close to Caracas, very close to the place where the bombing took place. So the ones who were in Venezuela were very scared. This is going on right now. We are here, some bombing, and we can feel the vibration of the wall of the house and also of the floor. So we don't know what to do. What should we do? They were asking us, and I remember that I said to my mom, "Don't worry, be quiet. That nothing wrong will happen to you. Don't worry. You are not so close to the place." Okay, yeah, yeah, sure. And well, finally, watch out, watch out. Okay. So finally, uh, my mom got relaxed. She calmed down, and But well, she told us we rather not continue talking. We rather not continue sending messages because if someone knows that I have these messages in my phone, I might go. I might be taken to prison or something. So we, the members of the family, decided that the best thing to do was not continue to comment on these events.
Well, I have a question for you as a follow-up to that. You are extremely outspoken. You you are commenting very publicly
Everything, yes,
about the event.
because I know I will not go to Venezuela. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I do that. I do
yeah,
that
but
because I will not go to Venezuela shortly.
What about relatives of yours who were there?
Yeah, they know that they cannot follow me in any of my media. They know they cannot. They shouldn't follow me on my Facebook account, or my Twitter account, or YouTube account, because they perfectly know what I post, what I comment, what my position is with respect to this dictatorship. And yes, of course, if they if the Maduro's forces see discover that any of the members of my family uh, have any messages or any media where they can see posts against Maduro, that will turn into trouble for them.
We we've already heard multiple first-person accounts of checks that are taking place on the Venezuelan side. Not, I mean, not just on the border, but in the country.
It has become law since yesterday. It
I
became since yesterday.
one
It
one
is in the law.
one Venezuelan woman told us that as she's traveling around the country now, at any point, police could stop her on the street and detain her and go through her phone, messages, social media, anything, to see if there's anything critical of the government or presumably positive with respect to Maduro's capture. Do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, I remember that yesterday we came across some people who were fearful that they no they told us that they came from Venezuela. I remember I asked them what the
Can
situation
you
was
pause
like.
that thought for 1 second?
Yep.
His, Jesus's social media, at least his YouTube and Twitter, are linked. They're in the description of this. They're in the description of this live stream, and they'll be in other videos that we're publishing. All right, continue.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for your interest, guys. I'm an English teacher, so I'm independent, and I do some other stuff, which I, of course, would like to share with you later on. But right now, let me tell you, I remember that I asked them yesterday what the situation was like inside of Venezuela, and I asked some of them what would happen in the case that any National Guard check on your phone and he found some messages, some celebration messages uh, concerning Maduro's capture, and they immediately say, "Wow, I cannot do that, and I will not do that because I know what's going to happen. I would be taken to prison immediately. I would be detained. My phone would be taken off me. That's it."
And likewise, you're towering over me. Um, Likewise, we can see the fear in a lot of people in their faces, in what they're saying, when because we've stood on that bridge for the better part of the last 2 days and successfully conducted a lot of interviews, published a little of that. Most of it's not yet published.
But many
Uh, but
people many people decided not to say anything. They said, "I'd rather not. I'd rather not say anything." All right, all right. Here comes a guy who pretends to be Simon Bolivar. Um, his costume as Simon Bolivar. He he pretends to be Simon Bolivar, our Liberator, or Liberator. How would you say? Libertator,
No.
Libertador in Spanish. Libertador.
National hero.
Yeah, our national hero. Well, Simon
The
Bolivar
man
used
who
to.
liberated someone.
Yeah, Simon Bolivar used to dress like this guy is right now. Casually, they were the same size because Simon Bolivar was very short. He was very thin, but he was very brave also. So, well, some Chilean people interviewing this guy right now.
With a comment, as one of the commenters says, Simone was half African. I
His roots, yes.
I'm I'm not monitoring the international media reports that are literally being shot right here, but it would be it would be interesting to watch them and to see what kind of coverage the Venezuelans who are entering Colombia, exiting Venezuela, what kind of coverage they're getting, because there are Venezuelans who are giving interviews, not just to us, but to major media outlets and all kinds of media who are out here. And I'd be curious to see. Oh, maybe we can get him on camera. You can ask him a question.
Go show.
Mr. Simone
Simon
is
Bolivar.
going for a little walk.
Yeah.
But I we'll walk and talk. What the point that I
Yeah.
was starting to make is that I'd be interested to see whether the media that are out here are, for the most part, in their analysis, commentary, potentially spin, are saying that most of the Venezuelans they're encountering are for or against the capture of Maduro. From what we've come across, and it's been difficult to talk to a lot of people for reasons that we just explained, it's it seemed to me that we've encountered more celebration of Maduro's capture than opposition to it from the Venezuelans that we spoke with. You can, Jesus, you can let us know if you're saying anything.
Con esta pedagogía histórica, enseño la historia a niños y jóvenes que quieren conocer.
He says that he's a history teacher and that his job is to teach the real stories of Venezuela and Colombian to children at schools. He's Colombian, but he says that very deep inside he feels like another Venezuelan.
Presidente en funciones del vecino país, pero en este momento no es cuestión de política, es cuestión ahora la paz.
So he says that at this very moment it's not about politics, but love for the nation.
Se ha devuelto a Venezuela, porque fue un secuestro que hizo el señor Trump, pasando por encima de todas las leyes, porque él cree que para él no hay leyes.
¿Cómo cree que va a continuar esto que hizo Trump el sábado, que arrancó Trump el sábado?
Bueno, en los momentos de crisis son los que demuestran de qué estás hecho. Y en este momento de crisis es donde se va a probar realmente quiénes son los verdaderos patriotas, quiénes son los que al primer
He's been asked what he thinks is coming after Saturday's events, and he says that in these moments of crisis is when you show you are a real patriot. That's what he said.
Fue tomar como excusa a Maduro para apoderarse del petróleo.
He says that this Maduro's takedown was just Donald Trump's excuse in order to get possession of the Venezuelan oil.
Cuando le dicen de presos políticos en el COINE o en otros lugares, ¿usted qué dice con respecto a esa parte del régimen?
Bueno, cuando tú estás privado de tu libertad por un ideal o por un concepto, se llaman preso político. Pero para mí solo hay presos.
Ah, no son presos políticos. ¿Usted no cree que haya presos políticos?
Claro que hay presos políticos, no solamente en Venezuela, sino en Estados Unidos también hay presos políticos.
He's being asked what his opinion about the political prisoners, and he says he is confirming that yes, there are political prisoners not only in Venezuela but also in the United States. So he's not negating that there are in Venezuela, which most Venezuelan politicians right now they say there are not political prisoners, right? But he's saying that yes, there are political prisoners inside of Venezuela, but also in the United States.
Interesting response. I don't really want to get into heated U.S. domestic politics, but yeah, there have been many allegations in recent years about political prisoners in the U.S. He wants a confrontation with you.
Yes.
He doesn't know it's coming.
No, of course. But if he accepts to be interviewed, let me address this. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo está? Joshua Friedman from Cal Coast News, United States, es un medio de comunicación estadounidense y ellos vienen para acá básicamente para conocer la impresión no solo de los venezolanos, sino también de los colombianos acerca de lo que ocurrió el pasado 3 de enero dentro de Venezuela.
Bueno, un saludo a todo el pueblo norteamericano. Como decía el gran poeta chileno Pablo Neruda, no es a tu pueblo al que odiamos, Norteamérica, sino tu máscara de guerrero.
Okay, permíteme traducir eso. He says a big greeting to all the American people, and as the Chilean poet Pablo Neruda said, it's not to you, America, the ones that we hate, but your warrior mask.
What do you think of the current tensions between the United States government and the Colombian government, and specifically the war of words between Donald Trump and Gustavo Petro?
¿Qué opina usted acerca de la confrontación que existe en este momento entre los gobiernos de Venezuela y Colombia con el de Estados Unidos y más específicamente con esta guerra de palabras que ha habido últimamente entre el gobierno de Petro y Estados Unidos, la guerra de palabras?
Bueno, ante todo asumir que sí, como usted lo dice, es una guerra verbal, es una guerra idiomática, es un conflicto diplomático, pero un conflicto diplomático que pasó a la acción concreta de una invasión ilegal, de un secuestro ilegal de un mandatario suramericano, independientemente que estés o no estés de acuerdo con los parámetros del señor Maduro, manera de gobernar a Venezuela, independientemente, no hay derecho para que sea secuestrado un presidente por otro presidente de una nación imperial.
All right. He says, yes, as you just said, it is a verbal confrontation, of course, a diplomatic confrontation, of course, that turned into an actual and factual action, which is the invasion of the country of Venezuela. And no country around or no president around the world has the right to kidnap another president from another country.
Are you concerned that something similar could happen in Colombia? Are you concerned that there could potentially be a U.S. invasion of Colombia?
¿A usted le preocupa el hecho de que probablemente si esto escala pudiera ocurrir lo mismo acá dentro de Colombia, que el presidente de Colombia pueda hacer también, le pudiera pasar lo mismo que le ocurrió a Maduro.
Es que esto no está pasando ahorita, esto viene históricamente pasando hace mucho tiempo. Hablemos del final de la guerra de los 1000 días en Colombia, cómo Estados Unidos aprovechó el desorden para quitarnos a Panamá, para decirle a los panameños que se independizaran y hacer el canal de Panamá, del cual se quedó como dueño. Esta injerencia en la soberanía de los pueblos no es de ahorita, es de siempre. Estados Unidos, como imperio del norte, pretende gobernar Sudamérica y siempre ha querido hacerlo. Lógicamente, el presidente Gustavo Petro es una piedra en el zapato de Trump.
This is not something recent. This is not something new. This is not something that is going on recently. This is something that has been happening and going on for years and years, even since the struggle between the United States and Colombia for Panama. Panama was a property of the Colombian government, but the United States took it away from the Colombian government, and they created the channel of the Panama Channel, but okay, that's basically what he said about this.
You asked for his name and his position.
Okay, podemos saber su nombre.
Yo soy el licenciado en artes Miguel Ángel Rodríguez Gutiérrez, de nacionalidad colombiana, pero de corazón venezolano, porque represento al más grande de los americanos, al libertador Simón Bolívar.
Okay, I have a degree in arts, and I am a Colombian citizen, but very inside of me, I am a Venezuelan citizen.
Why would you say that inside of you you're a Venezuelan citizen?
¿Por qué afirma usted que adentro es un ciudadano venezolano?
Porque nosotros, los libertarios o los hombres revolucionarios, no conocemos las fronteras ni las banderas.
Okay, let me say. Because we, the revolutionary ones, we don't know borders, we don't know frontiers, we don't know barriers, or we don't know flags. We are all the same nation.
Muchas gracias.
Quiero despedirme con una frase.
Okay. I'll back with a phrase.
Los Estados Unidos parecen destinados por la providencia a plagar a la América de miseria en nombre de la libertad.
Okay. The United States seem to be condemned to destroy the nations in the name of freedom.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's walk back. Let's walk back over there. And as we walk, I was about to ask for Jesus's response, but it looks like there's some kind of impromptu interview or something else going on. All right, so what's your response to what he has to say?
No, this woman was asking me if the march was still concentrated over the bridge, but I was just explaining to her that it had been.
Maybe a Colombian background to this conversation.
Oh, okay. Now, this woman was asking me if the march was still over the bridge, but I told her that was already spread out. You say? Yeah, dissipated. Yeah. So, but if you want, we can just take another walk.
What's your response to
What
the protest
this?
leader just had to say?
Simon Bolivar. Yeah, Mr. Simon Bolivar. Well, man. First of all, I consider myself a Democrat, right? Not because this is the United States political party. I'm a Democrat because I believe in democracy. That's it. Okay. And I respect other people's opinion, even though I'm not for them. I don't support them. I don't believe them. I don't follow them. But deep in the end, I consider myself a Democrat because I know that the best way to live is respecting people. I respect other people's opinions. But this patriotism, right? Patriotism, I consider not legit. It's not legit. He's omitting many aspects undergoing this situation inside of Venezuela. He says only that the United States, they want to invade, they want to own our oil and this and that. But he is omitting the little fact that the Russians, Chinese, Cubans, Iranians, they already had possession of our oil. So the United States, I believe, is just helping us recover what is ours. Okay?
You're referring to Venezuelan oil, right?
Yeah, the Venezuelan oil. Yes, of course. And they're trying to get back their oil machinery companies that were taken away by Chavez then in 2011, I guess. In 2011, Chavez the taken away of all the American infrastructure, and there is robbery. He never compensated the owners. He said from now on, this is mine, and that cannot happen. That is not being a democrat. That is being a dictator. That is being a dictatorship. So how can we support that? And it is more than obvious, more than comprehensible that Donald Trump now wants to get their stuff back. I mean, their companies and all the money that they lost throughout this 15 years or so. I mean, it's logical and understandable.
Speaking of Trump, you have you Jesus have a very interesting perspective on Trump. You were telling me earlier that you pretty much had clearance to move to the U.S. under temporary status, temporary protected status, as it's referred to, via a Biden program that allowed Venezuelans to live temporarily in the U.S. Trump ended that. So, in a sense, Trump prevented you from moving to the U.S. as you said it seemed quite likely that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yet you've also, over the past couple of days, been referring to Trump as a hero.
Yeah.
Am I quoting you correctly?
Yes, of course.
So,
Absolutely.
So on the one hand, Trump blocked you from moving to the U.S.
Yeah.
as you wanted to, but at the same time, you're referring to him as a hero.
Yeah, of course.
And not for the majority of the time, but some of the time that we've been out here, I've been trying to understand Venezuelan perspectives, individual perspectives on Trump, and they can be quite complex, like yours. So how do you reconcile the two things? One, you're stuck outside of the U.S. You don't get to live where I guess is the U.S. your desired destination to move to?
I wanted
All
back
right.
then until last year.
All right, so you wanted to move to the U.S.
And if
Trump
I-
essentially stopped you, yet
Yeah.
you're still referring to him as a hero. So
Yes,
let's-
of course.
Let's reconcile that. I'll
Yeah,
flip it around.
Sure. Well, it's two different things. Two different things. Completely different things. On one side, of course, my desire since I was a child, I'm 44, but since I have conscience, like 6 or 7 years, I have always desired, I have always wished to be able to live in the United States. That's true, of course. I didn't like Trump preventing me from moving there, but but I understand why he did so. If I understand that many Venezuelan criminals were sent to the United States and they killed so many people over there, so the president of the United States cannot be happy with that, and he has to do something about that. And I understand that he has the absolute right to stop Venezuelan people from coming into his country illegally. But of course, he was a little bit extremist, and he did not allow either illegal people or legal people. I was legal because I was undergoing a legal process. I was given the permission, the right by Joe Biden, right? That's the name of the previous president. By Joe Biden, they gave us the permission. We were just about to get the flight in less than a month. And then on the 20th of January, I remember, of course, because it's an unforgettable day for me. That was the day when he said, no more people coming into Venezuela. Of course, I hated that day, but I understood the decision. Absolutely. It, even I remember that I told my wife, if I were there, if I were him, I would have done the same. I would have done the same, of course, because those guys are sending Venezuelan people into my country in order to not only steal, rob, kill, kidnap, whatever. They even kill police officers.
Can you elaborate? So it's a common talking point from Trump himself and many Trump supporters that the Venezuelan government, not just the Venezuelan government, but particularly the Venezuelan government, sent criminals to the U.S. As in the intent, not that the border was open under Joe Biden,
It was intentional.
and that criminals happened to get loose and they walked into the U.S. So, what explain why and how criminals were sent by the Venezuelan government to the United States?
Why and how? Of course. Firstly, because the revolutionary Venezuelan forces hate Americans. First of all, they hate them. That's it. So what did they say? Oh, they are blocking me. They're blocking me economically. Now I'm sending them my criminals. They opened the jails completely, and they gave them not only money, not only financing, not only weapons, they were given everything in order for them to be able to cross the border. Remember, this border, the very famous border that is connecting Colombia, Panama, and what's the name of this jungle? Uh, eh, compa, compa, ¿cómo es que se llama la selva que cruza la gente para ir a Estados Unidos? El Darien. The Darien, yeah, the Darien Gap, right? So I know many people who found these criminals in the way to the United States, to Panama, in the way, and they were robbed by them. Some of them were even killed by them. Some of them were kidnapped or abused. Abused, you know that? So that was intentional, completely intentional. The jails were open. They were sent in mass into the United States, taking advantage that the borders were open.
Was the game Train de Aragua has been brought up repeatedly, and there were some points where it looked like Train de Aragua members had maybe taken over an apartment block or two in certain U.S. cities. So
That happened in Orlando,
how
I guess.
I think in Colorado. How prevalent is Train de Aragua in this, or are they just a small component of it? And what's the relation or connection between the Maduro government, now I guess the Rodriguez government, or the Chavista government, and these criminal gangs?
That's the way they operate. That's the way they operate. They force people to leave their houses.
Thank you, chat, regarding the Darien Gap.
Yeah. They force people to leave their buildings, houses, and they take possession of them, turning them into their fortress or so-called fortress. Right? They wanted to do the same in Colorado, USA, and fortunately, the U.S. forces, once Donald Trump took possession, he got rid of them all, and they were all sent either to El Salvador or to Venezuela.
The soldier climbing into one of the tanks. It's just a photo opportunity. Continue.
Yeah. All right. Any other question or comment with respect to this?
Well, how about from the chat? Anyone have any questions or comments for Jesus or the broader situation here? I I'd be interested to talk about La Parada and what's going on here, but I don't know if we've got time for an in-depth tour of La Parada. But I think one related note, and for those of you who aren't aware, there's a town, I guess I refer to it as a town, a small city that's right here on the Colombian side of the border. It's called La Parada. I've conducted a couple interviews here, more than a couple interviews here. One went very viral, or
Yeah.
viral, let's just say. But anyway, as we've been walking around La Parada here, Jesus, you've been. Yeah, could you hear me? My mistake for not talking in the mic. But as we've been walking around La Parada here, Jesus, you've been remarking about how empty and how quiet it feels to you. And you were speaking with a couple locals about that. And I think there may be some connection to the immigration issue with the U.S. that we were just discussing. So, what have you found and heard from us walking around La Parada here on the Colombian side of the border?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I noticed
Maybe we go back
yeah.
over to the
Yeah, we should approach that area. Hold on.
dodging traffic entering. But I gotta be careful not to get the phone smashed.
Okay. So this is all of this that you are looking here is called La Parada, okay? All of this is La Parada. And this used to be excessively crowded. See, 5 years ago, right? There used to be so many people struggling to get a job, struggling to get money, struggling to find a way to help people, not only foreigners, but just regular people coming and going. Where if they had heavy bags, the people from La Parada were always offering help for a few coins, just to get something to eat.
I didn't think of that, but you just made me realize that when I would pull up here at La Parada in a taxi in the past, there would be so many of those guys like couriers
Fighting to be the one
yes,
to help
they're
you.
yeah, like I mean it's funny because most of those people seemingly help people who need to transport goods
Yeah,
from the Colombian side to the Venezuelan side.
mostly
So,
heavy bags.
yeah, so that's not me, but yeah,
My dad used to work here doing that. My dad.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
my dad used to work here doing that, carrying bags and boxes onto his shoulders in order to make some money, in order to be able to get by the situation.
But yeah, it just crossed my mind that I'm seeing far fewer of those guys now.
No, there are not now. There are not. Actually, there are not because we've come twice. Once yesterday, and today was the second time. And we arrived just quietly. Nobody was offering help, like it used to happen 5 years ago. Remember, you can remember perfectly. So, I decided to ask some locals why there are so few people right now, so few residents right now. There's no this crazy situation of many people surrounding us, asking, begging for money or food. I remember, hey, do you have a piece of bread? Do you have some coins? I haven't had breakfast. They said I haven't had breakfast yet, and now that's not happening. As you can see, look at this. The streets are free. The streets are free. There's almost nobody. This is so quiet.
They're not empty.
Not fully empty, but in comparison to how it was 5 years ago, I remember there are very few people right now. And
What are you hearing? Why is that?
yeah, some of them told me, well, the situation forced them to move to other places. Some others decided to come back to Venezuela and continue with their lives over there because the situation slightly improved got better inside of Venezuela, near the border, of course. Okay, some others were benefited by Joe Biden's programs, and they, for the past 3 years, they had the chance to go to the United States, and that happened to thousands of people who used to live here. Okay.
The guy behind us slamming on the pole
Yeah.
seemed a little angry.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get the sense
He did.
that
He didn't like
does
that.
not want to be in the shot, and he was going to make that.
Yeah.
All right, so that guy's out of the shot.
Yeah, he was
He
mad.
is subtle-
But he was the only one that
subtle-
was
not
mad.
so subtle way of communicating that.
Yeah. He's the only one who is mad because the rest are just quiet. They don't pay attention to that. All right, let's continue this way.
Well, we could make one last trip back onto the bridge for
Yeah.
today and maybe see if we can interview someone.
Sure. Okay, let's go.
For those of you who weren't tuned in earlier, there was a demonstration that started right here at Press Row and then proceeded to go onto the middle of the bridge. I guess slightly to the Venezuelan side of the bridge. So I was very hesitant to go right up close to them because I didn't want to get snatched. I did not want to get snatched by Venezuelan guards. And actually, speaking of which, not Venezuelan, but Colombian immigration officials here are carrying out some checks on vehicles. Not a whole lot, though. I was just walking right through the area where Colombian immigration officials either stop or let cars go, and it seems like they're mostly letting traffic go without conducting any checks. But I have seen at times today, you see the vehicles pull up and a lot of them just go right through. But sometimes the Colombian immigration officials there do take a look at IDs or passports, but many people are frequently traveling back and forth across the bridge between Colombia and Venezuela without having any papers checked. We got one question earlier today as to whether there's been a rush of people heading from Venezuela into Colombia because of Maduro's capture. And at least for the day and a half or 2 days that I've been out here, that certainly has not been the case. There was some action, political action on the bridge. No, I'm saying earlier. I'm giving a recap. I'm giving a recap for people who weren't tuned in earlier. We were live streaming the protest on the bridge about an hour ago. But that protest is over.
Yeah.
For those who weren't tuned in, you want to explain who the protesters were? What they were saying?
Yeah, just a few Colombian guys claiming they were patriots, real patriots, defending the the brother Venezuelan patriots, claiming that Donald Trump doesn't have the right to invade any other country of the world, that an American president doesn't have the right to kidnap another president. They forget that Maduro is not the president. Okay, that they forget that Maduro didn't win the elections. That's just a portion that they always forget. They omit, or they ignore, or they pretend that they don't know. But well, whatever. They were saying we are here because we are Colombian and we are supporting our brothers because very deep inside we are Venezuelans and we are only one flag. We don't believe in borders. We are a single nation, and most important, they were saying that we must be cautious because if this happened in Venezuela, this can happen also in our country, and we cannot allow that to happen. That's what they said.
Maybe we can try. It's a little more difficult when we've got a live stream going, but maybe we can try to interview one or two people who are entering Colombia from Venezuela right now, as we've been doing repeatedly over the past couple days. I published I published one of those interviews. It wasn't the first one we conducted, with a Venezuelan woman who's living in Colombia but going back and forth frequently. The one in the red dress. She was very enthused about Maduro's capture, which we have heard from some people, but not from all. And a lot of people, as we were explaining earlier, are quite nervous or outright fearful of discussing things like that.
I remember that girl on the red dress. She was coming with her boyfriend or husband, I don't know, her couple, and the one who decided to speak was her because her boyfriend didn't want to make any comments. He looked afraid. He looked fearful, but he respectfully allowed her to speak with us, to talk with us.
For those of you who didn't hear us discussing it earlier, we have heard first-person accounts that Venezuelans in Venezuela are being threatened, or they're having their phones checked to see if they're sending messages critical of the government, or celebrating Maduro's capture. We also got an audio recording, which maybe I'll publish as part of, I don't know, an article or a future video report. You want to share what that was?
Yeah, that's something I know since long ago. But I have a family member whose cousin is a police officer inside of Venezuela. I will not reveal his identity, but he sent us an audio this morning that everyone is being warned inside of Venezuela. Everyone is being warned by the police that they should not have any comments against Maduro or Venezuelan's government, or any status post celebrating Maduro's capture, because they could be taken to prison. They could be kidnapped, of course. They could be taken off their phones. And as another guy told us, there was an Ecuadorian journalist who had a special permission from the Venezuelan authorities, but the National Guards didn't pay attention to that, and they took his phone, they checked it, and they decided to detain him for 8 hours before releasing him.
Speaking of which, I can see the Venezuelan guards.
Yeah, they're over there. They're still over there.
2/3 of the way across the bridge.
Yeah.
And
well, why don't we just walk a little bit closer?
I don't want to get too close because I've heard rumblings for years about Venezuelan guards or colectivo members or any kind of thugs who might be rumbling around the trochas.
Yeah,
these areas
they have no law. They follow no laws. They have their own rules, and their job is to detect any opposition to the government in order to
gringo American like
or gringos Americans, of course,
bring to the other side of the border. So
exactly.
That's my concern, and that's why I was not walking and filming right next to the protesters when they were on the bridge right about there about an hour ago. Anyway,
Let me see if I can interview this guy. Okay. Bueno, amigo. Hola. ¿Qué tal? Anything. He decided not to talk to me. He just said hi, and that's it. There's another guy coming in our towards us. He decided to move to the other sidewalk.
Yeah, I think,
They're
I think people can sense
avoiding
the
us.
live stream.
avoiding us.
We're getting more timid reactions when we're live.
Yeah. Let's see if these guys cooperate. I remember the first time I came to Colombia, I had to cross the border through these trees that you can see here. I had to walk like, I don't know, like 400 meters inside of that.
Atrocious.
The trochas, yes. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Me permiten un minutito, por favor? Sí, bueno, listo. They are Colombian because of the way they speak, because of their accent. They're not Venezuelans.
There have been some Colombians who've given interviews to us.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but some.
Yeah, some of them have been nice to us.
I've done a little reporting from within and around the Trochas. If you go back on my YouTube channel, like 5 or 6 years, you can find a little reporting that I've done. I've also written about the Trochas in some reporting that I've done in the past about the Colombian Venezuelan border. It's like a lady's approaching. I'm trying to keep the phone pointed at the Trochas right now, so it doesn't look like we're ambushing anyone who's walking into Colombia from Venezuela at the moment. Granted, there are a lot of people also walking from. I said that in reverse. Right now, you're looking at people walking from Colombia to Venezuela. And we're on the side where people are walking from Venezuela into Colombia. And Jesus is about to try to speak to one lady. He's speaking to her right now. We'll see if she decides to give an interview. It's a little tougher to get these interviews when we've got a live stream going. No luck.
She's in a hurry. I was asking her if she could give us her impressions on the situation, on the current situation, and she said she was in a hurry because she has to work.
There's someone.
Yeah. Uh-huh. They live there, and they work there. Would you like to have a closer look?
We can go to the other side of the bridge. I mean, we can go onto this side of the bridge, but I don't want to go to that side of the
Okay.
That side of the bridge is asking for trouble.
Yes, of course. But we could just cross.
Yeah, we can cross. We can cross the road if we dodge the motorcycles
wait.
coming in both directions.
They're coming very fast. Okay, now. Yeah.
The last time I was here, it was during COVID,
Okay.
and the bridge was closed, and people were constantly going back and forth through the churches.
Same thing that happened to me the first time I came here in 2018. I had to cross the border through La Trocha, which is basically crossing the river on the narrower side. So you know, because it is less dangerous. But I remember that we had to pay. I remember that there were people with weapons, people on command of the areas inside. We don't know who they belong to, or where they belong to, because they mostly were wearing masks and glasses and caps, you know, in order to keep their identity unrevealed.
Maybe we try one or two more times to get an interview, and if we don't,
All right,
we head back.
try this woman over here. She looks tired. Buenas. Señora, disculpe, me regala un minutico, por favor. Veo que viene cansadita. Seguramente, ¿verdad? Va para Venezuela. ¿Es venezolana? No, colombiana. Yo soy venezolano, colombiano también. Estamos entrevistando a algunas personas como para preguntarle cómo está la situación por allá, qué hay alrededor, si está todo bien, todo normal. ¿Sí? ¿Qué le parece? ¿Cómo está todo? ¿Bien? ¿Usted trabaja acá? Sí, y vaya, vive acá. Pero usted es colombiana y vive en Venezuela. ¿Por qué? No tiene problema con eso. Pero prefiere vivir en Venezuela que en Colombia. ¿Por qué? Tiene su familia acá. Muy bien. Bueno, muchas gracias por sus palabras. This woman, this is a Colombian woman. She she works in Colombia but lives in Venezuela. And I asked her why was that? She being Colombian, she prefers to live in Venezuela and not in Colombia. And she told me that all her family is in Venezuela. So let me see if we can interview this guy here. Háblame claro. Trabajando. Mi papá también es aquí. Ah, no, él es de Norteamérica. Eso es un medio de allá de Estados Unidos. Sí, preguntándole cositas a ver cómo está la cosa y eso. Ah, listo. Hold on. Mira, he wants to be interviewed. Okay, live, right? Okay. Si quiere paramos el carrito así para que no molestemos a la gente. Okay.
Buenas tardes. Muchas gracias, señor.
Good afternoon.
You can share what he's
¿Qué está haciendo acá? ¿Qué es esto?
Eso es comprando productos en Colombia.
He's buying some products in Colombia. Eggs
Y reciclando también.
and recycling.
Traigo cosas de Venezuela y las vendo acá para comer y llevar para como una bodega. Como...
Oh, qué bien. So he brings things from Colombia to Venezuela and he sells them in Venezuela in order to make some money. But he buys things in Colombia, brings them into Venezuela, and that way he is making a life.
Sí, ya.
¿Vive en Venezuela?
Sí, en San Antonio, aquí.
Okay, he lives in San Antonio, here next to the border.
Eso lo hacemos porque no hay trabajo.
Okay, we have to do that because there's no work inside of Venezuela.
El salario mensual son $3.
The monthly wage is $3. I told you, $3. This is true. $3 a month. Diga eso aquí.
I speak English more or less.
So. Ya, no necesito traducir eso.
Maybe we could
Yo entiendo lo que dice.
Okay.
Habla entrevista en español.
En español. Okay. Another question.
So I guess economically the situation is not so great in Venezuela. Why do you choose to continue living
Okay.
in Venezuela?
Él entiende que la situación en Venezuela realmente no está muy buena, pero ¿por qué usted decide seguir viviendo ahí?
Ya por la edad también, tengo mi casa y con lo agarro 300, $200 con el reciclaje, pues me basta.
Because of my age, he says, I'm a little bit older now, and with just a few money that I make, $200, $300 sometimes a month, that's enough for me to buy my food.
Has the situation been improving, getting worse in recent months and years?
La situación en los recientes años o meses, ¿usted considera que está igual, que se ha empeorado, que ha mejorado un poco?
Igual for me, igual for you. No, esperamos que mejore. Supuestamente la administración de los Estados Unidos va a tomar esto, el control. Ellos vienen a mejorar las refinerías que están destruidas y a empezar a mejorar la producción petrolera.
Exactly. Okay. Very good. He says, we hope the situation improves. And now that the U.S. government has taken over, we hope that they reactivate the refineries and oil making and oil selling, oil sales, and that will bring, as a consequence of that, we will have a better economy in the future.
So if you're okay with sharing this, are you supportive of what Donald Trump just did capturing Maduro?
Si no hay problema con compartir eso, entonces usted apoya lo que hizo Donald Trump el sábado.
Oye, uno como venezolano, como patriota, pues no es que tampoco esté contento por eso, pero es preferible eso para acabar de una vez con toda, con esa gente que ha acabado, ha empobrecido el país. Yo veo cómo quedó Panamá, yo veo cómo está Puerto Rico. Panamá es un puerto libre, bonito. Ojalá que Venezuela y venga la inversión extranjera acá de parte de los americanos.
Yeah, he basically says that it's not that we are very happy with what happened because we don't want to see dead people, but if that was necessary in order for us to get rid of those guys who have been destroying our country and making us poorer and poorer every year. Now I can see that, for example, in Panama, where they took Noriega out, Panama is a normal country. They are very good, as well as, ¿cuál otro país nombra usted aparte de Panamá? Puerto Rico. I can see that Puerto Rico is a country that is, economically speaking, very good right now. So we could be an example like Panama in the future. We could be very, very well in the future.
Do you think that Venezuela will now go in that direction of a freer economy and a country more closely aligned with the United States? Or do you think that it was just a situation of chopping the head off the snake and the Chavista government will remain in place?
Okay. ¿Usted considera que esa es la dirección en la que va Venezuela, de que va a levantarse económicamente, de que va a haber una economía más libre, de que vamos a tener un país próspero? ¿O usted piensa que esto fue simplemente cortar una de las cabezas, pero que esta gente va a seguir metida allá?
Yo pienso que vamos a mejor y que esto es transitorio, como lo dijo el mismo Donald Trump, es una transición. Ellos no podían de golpe sacar a la gente, ni traer a Mundo, ni a traer a Corina tampoco. Tuviera una matazón, la guerrilla, los colectivos estuvieran matando gente. Vamos avanzando poco a poco. Se supone que por la ley, dentro de 100 días vienen ya las elecciones, supervisadas por los países extranjeros, por los Estados Unidos, por una comisión especial.
Exactly. Okay. He says that he considers that we are going on that direction, okay, of prosperity, because they could not cut all the heads together. They had to cut one and the other one, but this is a short transition, as Donald Trump said. This is just a transition. In 100 days, we should have new elections, but this time supervised by international entities.
What would you like Donald Trump, the U.S. government, the international community to do to ensure that this transition takes place, that you do have elections, and that the country becomes more democratic and more economically free, as you've been saying?
Okay. ¿Qué considera usted que necesita hacer el gobierno de Donald Trump para asegurar que realmente vamos a lograr un país más próspero, más libre y que estas condiciones de las que usted habló realmente sean una realidad?
Bueno, ya ir en la transición, ya ir saliendo a toda esta gente del chavismo y ir colocándola ya personal bueno hasta que se llamen las elecciones. Los principales departamentos, qué sé yo, el Ministerio de Minas, el Ministerio de Ambiente, personal venezolano, pero ya son personales que no tienen nada que ver con el gobierno de Chávez.
Okay, he says that primarily taking out all the Chavistas personalities, governors, majors, everyone involved in the Chavismo movement, they have to be taken out little by little until we have new authorities, but new authorities that are not connected to the Chavismo. So that's the only way for us to accomplish this mission.
Does that mean? Oh, go for it.
Yo he trabajado en la industria petrolera por 30 años, porque yo trabajo la topografía petrolera, lo que llamamos la exploración. Vos o topografía. Sí, jefe de topografía. Entonces, y hablo el inglés 70% aproximadamente. Entonces, a mí probablemente me llamen, porque aquí no hay técnicos. Personal que haya trabajado en la industria petrolera, los americanos lo van a llamar, porque muchos se fueron al éxodo. Y los pocos que quedamos, que tengamos experiencia, nos van a llamar también.
I have experience. I used to work for the oil business for 30 years in the past. So I have lots of experience in the field. So I consider that Donald Trump will call people like me with experience in the oil, in the refineries,
Allá en el
engineer. ¿Podemos mostrar esta? ¿Podemos mostrar? Yeah, we can show it. He's a topographer, a professional topographer. So you should. Okay. So he's a specialist, and he considers that since most professionals were left the country, they will be called by the new government in order to continue working in the same field.
What do you think should happen with Venezuela's oil resources in order for Venezuela to prosper again?
Okay. ¿Qué considera usted que se debe hacer con los recursos minerales venezolanos para que volvamos a ser una nación próspera?
Preventivamente, ojalá que la administración alcance todo eso mineral, la administración de los americanos. O sea, hasta que lo tomen los venezolanos por completo. Siempre ha sido así. Nadie trabaja de gratis. Ellos también van a sacar beneficios de eso. Entonces, de parte y parte.
Exacto. Okay, hopefully the U.S. government can take over all those minerals, all those things, and put them in the and use them to the benefit of the Venezuelan citizens. He says, of course, nobody will do anything for free. They will want to get some benefit out of this. But they would have the right also, if they will help us and they will benefit us from this, they have also the right to get some benefit out of this.
Oil has been such a huge debate.
Que dice que el petróleo es un debate grande.
And the critics of what Donald Trump and the U.S. government are doing are saying that they're just taking the oil, but it sounds like you want the U.S. to take the oil.
Exactly.
And it's coming from an industry professional.
Sí, dice que la mayoría de la gente opina que Trump viene por el petróleo, pero hay mucha gente a la que hemos entrevistado y dicen que ojalá se apodere del petróleo para que por fin lo ponga al servicio de los venezolanos, ¿cierto?
Right, correcto. Sí, sí, porque ellos solamente disfrutaban de toda esa riqueza. El venezolano nunca aprovechó nada de eso.
Exactly. So they were the only ones who were taking advantage of that richness, but they never put it in favor of the Venezuelan citizens. So now we have a chance that Donald Trump takes over and he puts that richness in favor of the Venezuelan citizens. Ya se va del friend.
Okay, I think you need I think you need a back into Venezuela. So what,
Mira, ¿y por qué prensa va a salir eso?
Okay, it's he's asking what type of press or channel this will. I can write, yo te puedo escribir el nombre por acá.
Okay.
Okay.
if I may,
Watching TV.
if I may, I might quote you an article, but this is going on my YouTube channel.
Hombres, you name.
No, wait.
Búscalo porque yo la candidata de alcalde aquí
I will write the name of your channel on this box so that he can look it up once he make it to his house.
y te va a dar
Acuérdese de buscar Puente La Parada, ¿ok? He puesto varias entrevistas de acá. Joshua Friedman, Puente La Parada.
lo tuyo.
Ah, no. Ok. Ah, no, Josh.
Porque te voy a buscar tu
Solo.
papá de
Josh Friedman. Dale, sí va.
de la exclusiva de la alcaldía.
Sí va.
Ya le piqué delante a los corruptos de que estaban ya diciendo que tenían el agente político.
Ok, Jesús Infante.
Thank you, Chad. I do want to clip this interview, but one last question, if I may. You're not scared to see any of this, and if so, why?
Ok. Que si a usted no le da miedo de emitir estas opiniones, y si es así que no le da miedo, ¿por qué no le da miedo?
Se acabó el miedo. Ayer hubieron 6 periodistas que metieron presos en el estado de Aragua y como a las 4 horas los soltaron. Debe ser que reciben una llamada otra vez de Estados Unidos. Okay, pero ya yo he dado todas estas declaraciones.
Muy bien. Okay, he said the fear is over, and this is my favorite phrase of this day. Okay, the fear is over, and I feel the same. He said yesterday 4 journalists were taken to prison, but 4 hours later they were released, probably due to a phone call made by somebody. But this is what is going on. People are stopping from feeling afraid.
Tu nombre es
Wilson. My name is Wilson Robert.
Wilson Robert.
Wilson Robert.
Bye, Wilson. Thank you very much.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you very much. Hey, wait. Perdón. Vamos a tomar una foto aquí. ¿Qué pasa? Rápido. Todo va a quedar para la historia. La mejor entrevista que hemos hecho, ¿ok? This has been the best interview that we've had these days, okay? So,
I
ahí.
don't think I've ever been in a selfie during a live stream.
That's it, man. Thank you so much. Bye, my friend. Bye.
Gracias. Hasta luego, Wilson. Even members of the chat are loving it.
Ah, bien, hermano. Bueno, me alegra mucho, pero más o menos por dónde vas a estar, dime.
We're still live. I find that very courageous of him to say everything he just said. But that aside, it's a very interesting remark that he made at the end, saying the fear is over. And when Jesus is free again, Jesus is busy for a moment, I will ask a follow-up question on that. I just took another awkward, well, I didn't take it. I was just in another awkward streaming selfie. So he says the fear is over,
The
and
fear is
then
over.
he was the one who said that 4 journalists were arrested and then released.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 journalists were arrested, but 4 hours later they were released. Many people suspect that it was due to a phone call that they received. They had to be immediately released. So there is somebody taking over right now, and I suspect that it is the government of the United States through Delcy Rodriguez.
Well, let's try to look into that. But maybe before wrapping up this stream, and let's walk in the direction of Colombia, not Venezuela. It's not yet free and safe for me to walk into Venezuela, but maybe we have a little chat about where things may be headed with Delcy Rodriguez as president, because we haven't touched upon that yet. Did you hear that, Jesus?
I did.
Let's first cross the bridge safely. Then once the bridge is crossed, literally, or mostly crossed, then we can have a little chat about Delcy Rodriguez and the direction of Venezuela and Venezuelan government. Those mountains in the back are in Venezuela. We are now returning to Colombia. For much of this stream, we have been on El Puente Internacional Simon Bolivar, the Simon Bolivar International Bridge that here forms the border between Colombia and Venezuela. There was a protest on this bridge about an hour and a half ago, something like that. We were streaming that protest and then interviewing one of the protest leaders briefly at the end, who was dressed as Simon Bolivar. And we're basically back in Colombia now. Jesus, let's start wrapping up the stream. Let me know when you're. Oh. Jesus needs to leave a few voice notes. Before we ventured back onto the bridge, we were showing you a little bit of the town here, La Parada. All right, so never mind La Parada. We're back on the Colombian side, and this interview that we just conducted, very interesting one, and I will probably clip it and put it on the YouTube channel. Hopefully the audio is fine. Maybe someone who is listening live can confirm whether the audio is fine during that interview. Anyway, at the end, the man, when I asked him, is he scared to say any of this, and if not, why, he said the fear is over, and he cited this case with the journalists being arrested and then released that we can look into. So now, where do you think things? Great. Thank you for chiming in about the audio.
Oh, nice.
Where do you think things are headed now with Delcy Rodriguez as president of Venezuela?
Yeah, I remember some words that the previous guy we interviewed said, and I didn't mention. I forgot to mention. He mentioned something that he said. Trump didn't cut all the heads at the same time, because that would have provoked as sl- slaughter, no, slaughtering, no, slaughtering, killing of people,
Oh, slaughter.
slaughtering. Yeah, that would have provoked a general slaughtering, because remember there are armed irregular groups inside of Venezuela, right? So he couldn't just uh, if he had wanted, he would have been able to do that, of course, but that was not uh, the best possible option. They've been studying all options throughout the years, throughout the past year. In 2 weeks, Donald Trump will turn his first year in the government, and I'm very sure they have been discussing about this throughout all this time. So he said that in the case that all the heads had been cut, that would have provoked a slaughtering, generals everywhere, irregular armed groups killing people everywhere. And the best thing for Venezuela right now is that Delcy Rodriguez works side by side with the U.S. government. She already accepted doing everything Donald Trump demanded from them. They accepted the conditions, and now little by little, they will be uh, they will be put aside, and the U.S. will be taking control little by little. That is my consideration. Of course, I don't have the power to see the future, but this is what I think is going to happen. The U.S. government will take the control of Venezuela little by little. Now that they know that they have the power to enter and do whatever they want, because there will be no real opposition. And when I say no real opposition, I mean there will be no weapons shooting against them. Why not? As we said earlier today, the military soldiers, all the military forces are against Maduro. They don't support Maduro, and know that the best thing for the country is to get rid of them. So that is the main reason why they decided not to use the military weapons against the helicopters or aircraft of the United States. So this is a message, a clear message. Uh, Donald Trump has the Venezuelan military support. Okay, so this will make things easier in the coming time.
I think you're pretty clear about that, and it's been a hotly debated issue since Trump made the remarks after Maduro's capture that the U.S. is now in control of Venezuela, or the U.S. has taken over Venezuela. Let me just really quickly first say we're going to be wrapping this up momentarily. So for anyone watching right now, please leave a comment or question if you have one. Go for it, Jesus.
No, yeah. I just wanted to add that that was the best gift we have received this year, even though only 3 days had passed from 2026, the 2026. That has been one of the biggest gifts anyone has given to the citizens of Venezuela. I've been the happiest guy on earth for the past 4 or 5 days after Maduro was captured. I can't believe that finally the the dream of 90% of society, of Venezuelan society, finally came true. So this is so unbelievable, man. This is huge.
And as we walk, that's something you expressed in the video that we shot yesterday, that I published earlier today, that begins with clips from our live stream 6+ years ago. I see that. Anyone have any comments or questions before we wrap this up? I will be publishing a lot more. I have a lot of editing to do. I will be publishing a lot more footage, including interview footage. We have lots of interview footage, and there's more that I still have to record. But I'll be publishing a lot of footage from here, the Venezuelan-Colombian border, as well as potentially in Cucuta, the Colombian city or large city that's closest to the border. We're right now walking through La Parada, which we discussed earlier during this stream, during a segment or segments where we discussed Venezuela as it relates to U.S. immigration policy. Jesus was remarking that La Parada, this border community or town that I've visited multiple times in the past, is quieter and, as he refers to it, emptier than he's used to seeing it, much emptier in his words. And I can kind of attest to that as well. Jesus was remarking that based on his conversations with people here in La Parada, it seems like one of the reasons for La Parada somewhat emptying out of Venezuelans is that many had come to the U.S. under the Biden administration's programs for Venezuelans to move to the U.S. Interesting enough, Jesus, you mentioned earlier that you yourself tried and almost moved to the U.S. under one of the Biden administration's programs, only for your move to the U.S. to be stopped at the last minute by Trump canceling those programs. Yet here we are. Yeah, we already talked about it. I'm recapping it.
Okay.
I'm recapping it. Here we are, full circle, where earlier in this broadcast you were praising Trump as a hero. I'm just recapping some of what we discussed and showed earlier for those of you who missed it. Any final comments before we wrap this up, Jesus?
Between living in the US and seeing my country free and happy, I prefer the second option. I sacrifice myself. I sacrifice my own wishes and desires. I prefer to see my country free. That nothing will make me happier than that. I cannot be so selfish as to say, oh no, I don't care what happens in my country because I'm not living there anymore. No, 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 no. I wish I could get back my country in the near future. So, as I told you at the beginning, between living in the U.S. and seeing my country free, I prefer the second option. Of course, 100%.
All right, on that note, if we don't have any other comments or questions, thank you very much to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to the commenters in the chat. I'm glad to hear that the audio was at least good enough, if indeed it was during that interview that we conducted on the bridge at the end. I will be clipping that, so you can stay tuned to that on the channel. And a lot more will be published on this channel from the Venezuelan-Colombian border and La Parada and potentially Cucuta on the Colombian side. Muchas gracias, Jesus. It's been a busy couple hours or more here.
Yeah, but I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed a lot. I've had a nice time. I missed coming here. I missed talking to my people. It's been a while since I last had the chance to talk to some of them. I know there's so much poverty around here, but they are humble people. They are good people. They are nice people. And I know that our dreams will come true very soon.
Well said. Muchas gracias to everyone. That's a wrap for today from the Venezuelan-Colombian border. Stay tuned.